Welcome to the Boston Beat. I'm Alex Lebowitz. It's been a while, but I'm back at it and here to discuss some things with the Celtics, some things with the Red Sox, because it's a crazy time right now in Boston. It's the first time that I can remember that the Celtics have had uh, they've had a chance to get a star in the NBA. You know, they got Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen back in '07, '08, but those guys do not compare, in my opinion, to Kevin Durant and how he can alter an organization. If he's on your team, you're automatically a contender. And the Celtics already have a great roster, and they have a lot to compete with. Um, Teams like Oklahoma City, the team that Kevin Durant was on, the Golden State Warriors, San Antonio Spurs. I hear the Knicks somehow are in the discussion, and the Miami Heat. And if I'm Kevin Durant, I'm looking at these Eastern Conference teams. Obviously, if you go to San Antonio, Kevin Durant, he's gonna be on a powerhouse with Greg Popovich leading the helm, LaMarcus Aldridge, Kawhi Leonard, and Tony Parker. That's going to be an amazing team if he ends up signing there, and I can see why he would. But you're still in the Western Conference, and you still have a very tough path to get to the finals. And he almost did it this season with the Warriors, but we'll get to that later. And I'm just going to make a case for the Celtics. I am a Celtics fan, and I do want to see him in a Boston uniform next season, obviously. And I think it wouldn't be an awful choice for Kevin Durant. And I'm trying to be as objective as possible. But right now, it's obvious he likes Danny Ainge, Brad Stevens. He says that about every coach. But if you're in the NBA, you got to respect what's being done in Boston right now with this young core, this gritty team with a good young coach and a good future. But the thing is, you need a superstar to win, and Kevin Durant can't be that superstar. So if I'm the Boston Celtics, I'm telling them we're one piece away. And it's going to be tough to compete with Golden State. It's going to be tough to compete with OKC and San Antonio. But you have the assets to get other players. Kevin Durant comes in your office. I'm not the first person to say this, by the way, but if Kevin Durant comes in your office, you tell him that we can get whoever you want. And realistically, that's false, but you can get a DeMarcus Cousins. You have the assets to go out and acquire a guy like that. And the Kings just drafted, 3 centers in the first round? So it's obvious that something's up there. I've heard the owner is a big fan of DeMarcus Cousins, does not want to see him leave. He's started with that team. He was drafted by the Kings. But he's a guy who has personality flaws, and he's very emotional. So maybe what they should do is rebuild, and DeMarcus Cousins, trading him away for, I don't know, Avery Bradley, Jay Crowder, a Nets pick, maybe Marcus Smart. You have plenty of assets to go on to get that guy. If not him, maybe Jimmy Butler. We saw that the Bulls and the Celtics were in talks. And, if you're not going to get Kevin Durant, obviously you don't make the trade in which you give up a ton of assets for this one guy. But if you do get Kevin Durant, you'll give away whatever you need, with maybe the exception of Isaiah Thomas, because that's a guy who will be a part of that big three. So if you have a big three of Isaiah Thomas, DeMarcus Cousins, and Kevin Durant, or Isaiah Thomas, Jimmy Butler, and Kevin Durant, that's a team that's competing with the Cavaliers to be the number 1 seed in the East and to ultimately represent the Eastern Conference in the NBA Finals. And it's going to be a much easier path as well. Obviously, we need to go through free agency, but I'm going to put my money on the fact that the Western Conference is just going to be a lot deeper. Maybe not a lot deeper, but way more top-heavy. And the reality is, it's really those top 3 or 4 seeds that count in the NBA. It's going to come down to the Thunder, the Spurs, and the Warriors. The Clippers, maybe. Definitely not the Rockets. We know that now. And maybe the Trailblazers can step up. But realistically, it's coming down to those 3 teams, especially if Kevin Durant goes back to the Thunder. If he doesn't, then the Thunder are out of that equation. But if he comes to the East, it's whichever team he's on and the Cavaliers. That's the reality. So if we're comparing them to the Miami Heat, which is really the only other contender to get a guy like Kevin Durant, the Celtics are a much better organization. They're in a much better place right now. You got Dwayne Wade, who had a really good season last year. But let's face it, he's turning 35, And he's been in this league since 2003. He's worn down. And he's not going to put up the same numbers as he did last year. And obviously having Kevin Durant would ease the load. But do you really think that that team's going to beat the Cavaliers, who are going to have LeBron James and Kyrie Irving, who just showed us that he is one of the better point guards in the NBA in this NBA Finals? They're probably going to get rid of Kevin Love, but they'll have someone come in who will be of equal value, at least to that roster, because Kevin Love didn't do much in the Finals. Maybe Game 7 he stepped up a little bit, but I digress. You also have Luol Deng, Joe Johnson, and Hassan Whiteside, plus Dwayne Wade. They're all free agents. Now, obviously, if Kevin Durant decides to sign with the Heat, he's probably going to end up staying there. All those guys will probably end up trying to find a way to stay there, that is. But, you know, that's going to be a tough thing to do. And even then, I think if he's on the Celtics, that's just a much better roster, even if you subtract Jay Crowder and Avery Bradley. Especially if you trade those guys and add someone, like I mentioned earlier, in Cousins or Butler, which I think is doable. They could go out and get Butler. And if you're the Kings and you don't take Jay Crowder, Avery Bradley, and that Nets pick, the ability to swap, and maybe Marcus Smart, and they have a bunch of other picks, they have a Nets pick the following year as well, then I don't know what you're doing with your organization, because you're not going anywhere with just DeMarcus Cousins. But the reality is San Antonio will be a better team with Kevin Durant than the Celtics would be with Kevin Durant. Same thing with Golden State. And I'd even say Oklahoma City, who just made a great trade for them with the Magic, getting Oladipo, Ilyasova, and one other guy. His name's slipping my mind, but they trade away Serge Ibaka, and that team already has plenty of depth in their front court, so they didn't necessarily need him. Now they have two very good guards in Russell Westbrook and Victor Oladipo. Oladipo is only 24 right now, and he averaged like 17 points a game last season. They have another offensive weapon on that team, another very good guard who can help out on both ends of the court. And if you bring Kevin Durant back, that's a very stacked team, and that team is better going into next season than they were this year. So I could see him going back to Oklahoma City. And if I'm being honest, I think that's what he's going to do. Sign a one-year deal. Him and Russ will be free agents at the same time. They can go wherever they want. And I think he's a loyal guy. I think part of him wants to stay with the Thunder just because of the fact that he started there. He started, even though it was in Seattle, he started with that organization. And he's beloved there by everyone. And they have a legitimate chance of being in the NBA Finals and winning it next season. They do. They just forced Golden State to 7 games. They did have a 3-1 lead, and they did blow it a little bit. But they had a 3-1 lead. They proved that they could beat that team in a 7-game series. Even though they didn't, they definitely had the ability to. And again, they'll be better next season with Durant on that roster. So, again, ideal scenario, see sign Durant, and Durant's only coming here if they make that deal. He's not going to come here with the roster in place. You can't just have Kevin Durant and then Isaiah Thomas and then the rest of the Celtics. That's not good enough. Maybe they can compete with the Cavs, but I still don't think so. You need to get another player, and I think they have the assets to do that. I want to move on to the Red Sox. This team has been playing pretty poorly as of late. They're starting to come down to earth. They came out of the season swinging the bat red hot, playing unbelievable baseball. Their pitching was not so great, but they have 3 good starters right now, and I think their bullpen's better than most. But they're not a World Series contender. They are not a World Series contender right now. They have Stephen Wright, Rick Porcello, and David Price. I trust those 3 pitchers. Porcello's been consistent as can be. Price is starting to come around, even though he had a horrible start against the Rangers. I still think he's a great pitcher, and I haven't lost confidence because before that start, he's pitching very well. And Stephen Wright, who had a pretty bad start yesterday, he still leads the league, the AL at least, in ERA. So he's been pitching very well. He's a shot to start the All-Star game for the AL. So those 3 guys are great. They still need one more pitcher. They need one more starting pitcher. The bullpen will be fine. Koji, he's pitching like crap. Carson Smith's out for the season. But Kimbrel is still a great closer. Heath Hembry's been pitching very well. Matt Barnes, I have a lot of confidence in. Tazawa has been playing very well. And then Clay Buchholz, who pitched today, gave up 3 runs in the first inning, and the game's still going on. He's not a guy you can trust on the mound to start the game. I think you can move him to the bullpen, and he'll be all right. If not, DFA him, because I'm sick of seeing Buchholz going on the mound and blowing games for the Red Sox. And this lineup has cooled off, but they're still a very good lineup. 1 through 4, I'm talking Betts, Pedroia, Bogarts, and Ortiz. That's the best 1 through 4 in the AL, in the MLB, actually, because they're all playing very well. Betts is leading the league in runs scored. Bogarts is leading the league in hits. Ortiz in ops and slugging percentage, and he's having an unbelievable year. And Pedroia is top 10 in a lot of categories as well, and he's looking like Dustin Pedroia again. So I think they're going to come around. And I don't think they need to go out and get another player. I think Chris Young has stepped in and played pretty well. Brock Holt will be back soon. He's a good utility guy. You can plug him in anywhere. And Hanley Ramirez is starting to swing the bat a little bit better. So I think the offense will be back to normal. And you saw it the other night when they scored 4 runs in the 9th inning. They have the ability to take over a game. They're not playing as well in the first. They're not scoring a run every first inning like they had been the first couple months of the season. But they're still a reliable lineup that can give their pitching plenty to work with. And one thing that's been floated around is bringing up Benintendi. But again, I think Young's done an all right job. You could bring him up. I don't think it's time to bring up Benintendi. He's 22 years old right now, or 21. And he hit 341 in Salem, had 32 RBIs, 34 games. So he played very well in single A ball. It was advanced A ball. And he did very well there. He's starting to come around in Portland. You know, right now he's 254. He's hitting 254 up in Portland. And he's played the same amount of games, 34 games. But the last 10 games, he's starting to come around, hitting 282, has had 5 multi-hit games, and he's also driven in eight runs. But still, he's not ready. And to me, he has the makings to be a star in this league, to be an unbelievable outfielder. So I don't want to trade him because I think he'll come up, and I think he's going to make some noise in the MLB. He's done nothing but good things since he's been in the Red Sox farm system. He was a great player in college. I think he's done everything they've wanted him to do since he's been in this farm system. So you got to go out and trade someone to get a pitcher who's going to help this ball club. You can go out and get a 3 or 4 starter who's reliable. You probably have to overpay for him, but you can do that. You wouldn't have to give up too much. Or you can go out and get a guy like Garrett Cole or Jose Fernandez, who the Red Sox have inquired on. But you'd have to give up Benintendi or Moncada or both or Devers, or you'd have to give up Jackie Bradley Jr. or Mookie Betts. Do not give up Xander Bogaerts. That's the one untouchable on this Red Sox ball club. I would give up Mookie Betts because I think Bogaerts is going to be a better player at the end of the day. And again, you have guys coming up in the Sox farm system who are outfielders who can plug into where Betts was in right field. It's very hard to get a shortstop the caliber of Xander Bogaerts, who has the glove and the bat, and is only 23 years old nonetheless. So I if they want to trade Mookie Betts for Jose Fernandez, I would do it because right now you're in your farm system. You have very little pitching, and you have a ton of offense. So you need a young pitcher. And I think Jose Fernandez or Garrett Cole are 2 guys you can go after. Chris Sale's been floated around. I would be willing to trade a lot for Chris Sale. He's not quite as young, but still a great pitcher. So is Betts untouchable? I don't think so. I think there's a price for Betts. Bogaerts, on the other hand, I wouldn't trade anyone for Bogaerts. I think he's going to be the face of the MLB one day. I really do. He's come around. He's played unbelievably. Also, Eduardo Rodriguez back to the starting rotation. I think Eduardo Rodriguez will come around again. His fastball is starting to hit 95, 96. His velocity is up since he came back from the DL. He's getting shelled a little bit, and he's tipping his pitches, but it's all fixable. And I think he'll be back to that 3.5 ERA that we're used to seeing. And he's only 22, 23 years old. So he'll be fine. I'm not worried about Eduardo Rodriguez coming back to earth and playing like he has been. like he did last season. So he could be your 4 starter. He can be. You just need one pitcher to put you over that hump and to get back into first place. Right now, the Sox are 3.5 games back. They're 9-13 in the month of June, and they've just been struggling. And it's clear they had to make a move. So my question is, we talked about making moves in that starting rotation. We talked about trading some young players who are unbelievable assets that most teams dream of acquiring. But there's one move that they can make if the struggles continue, and I think that's getting rid of John Farrell. So they're 9-13 this month. They've lost the first place, the lead in the AL East, 3.5 games back. The Orioles have been playing great baseball, but the Sox, I think, have a better roster than the Orioles do. And like most Sox fans, I don't think that John Farrell should have been. I think he should have been fired after last season, and I think maybe Lovullo should have taken over because the Red Sox played well with Lovullo at the helm. And right now, from what I'm reading and what I'm hearing, Lovullo's really the guy on this team that connects with the players and has that relationship that Farrell doesn't really have. So maybe fire Farrell, fire Carl Willis while you're at it. If you want. I don't think he necessarily needs to be fired because realistically, it comes down to the 4 and 5 starters who just haven't been pitching well. And I think Clay Buchholz, the reason he hasn't been pitching well is because he's a bit of a head case. But fire Farrell if this continues. It's hard to fire a first-place manager. Right now, you're in second place in the AL East. You're 3.5 games back, and you keep on slipping. So how far does it have to get for you to say, you know what, I think we need to cut ties with this guy? And I know if you're if you're Dombrowski, you don't want to make a drastic move like that in the middle of the season, especially with a playoff contending team. But in this case, I think it could put you over that hump. But the number one thing you need to do is go out and get a pitcher, a starting pitcher. I don't think you need to get a reliever. I think the bullpen will be fine. I think if Tommy Lane's had his bad performances. Kimbrel obviously has, and Uehara has had a subpar season. But starting pitching is really what you need to go out and get. You need to get one more guy to put you over that hump, and maybe you're a World Series contender. Even if you get that guy, I don't know. But it will make you a better team, and it will put you in a better position to be that World Series contender that this roster is probably capable of. So that's going to do it for the Boston Beat. I'm going to try to do this weekly. I don't know if I'm going to have the time to get it done, but you can also listen to me on the John and Lebo show, which this podcast is going to be broadcasted on the YouTube page of the John and Lebo show. So listen to me there. I'll be doing that weekly. I know that. I'm going to try to make time for this. But thank you for listening, and tune in next time.